the most powerful rocket fuel for a groundbreaking startup isn't just market research
Yeah.
or a ton of capital.
No, it's personal trauma fused with this kind of righteous anger.
We're calling it good indignation.
Exactly. It's the journey of Surbi Cerna, who took a really devastating medical scare in her youth and channeled that frustration into founding Envision Medical.
And Envision developed a device for the early detection of ovarian cancer. That company was eventually purchased by Boston Scientific for, what, $275 million?
A huge exit.
So our mission in this deep dive is to really extract the strategic, the technical, and the psychological nuggets from Sarna's whole experience. We want to give you a complete blueprint for how you can translate personal pain into, well, monumental success.
Yeah, and we've got a stack of sources here detailing her R&D process, her very unusual networking tactics, and the absolutely grueling journey she went through in the fundraising gauntlet.
What's so fascinating to me is that the foundation of this, $250 million company wasn't laid in some incubator or a lab.
No, not at all. It was laid when Sarno was just 13 years old. And that's really where we have to start this deep dive. You have to understand the moment that sparked this lifelong quest for a better tool.
Okay, let's unpack this defining moment. Sarna was just 13, a freshman in high school, sitting at her desk. I think she was working on an English paper. And suddenly she feels this just burst of excruciating pain in her abdomen. She described it as a firework exploding inside her.
It was so sudden, so severe that she immediately passed out, just crashed right onto the floor.
The initial confusion and then the agony when she came, it must have been immense. Her mother, who the sources say is barely 5'3", had to somehow carry her daughter into the car and rush her to the ER.
Yeah, and the pain just wouldn't stop. It led to all these initial misdiagnoses. The doctors, they suspected everything from a ruptured appendix to, and this is unbelievable, pregnancy.
Right. And Sarna, even in that state, in that trauma, she had the presence of mind to be deeply frustrated. The sources say she just snorted at the pregnancy suggestion.
She called it an immaculate conception.
Exactly. But the next day, an ultrasound finally revealed the truth. It was a complex ovarian cyst.
And this is the critical juncture. This is where that personal trauma pivots into what she calls that deep, sustained, good indignation.
So what does complex mean here exactly?
A complex cyst isn't simple. It's part solid tissue and part fluid. And that means it carries a significant immediate threat. It might be malignant. It might be ovarian cancer.
So the choice presented to her and her family was truly agonizing. It put her in this impossible dilemma that, no 13-year-old should ever have to face.
Right. So option one was immediate invasive exploratory surgery.
Okay.
And while this would give them a definitive answer right away, the risk was incredibly high. The procedure could lead to scarring, hormonal damage, or even the outright removal of her ovary.
Which would impact her fertility, her hormonal health, for decades, for the rest of her life.
And option two?
They could just wait. Hope the mass would dissolve on its own, which is, a common outcome for benign cysts.
But the risk of waiting was catastrophic. As she learned later, if aggressive ovarian cancer is caught late, the 5-year survival rate just plummets. It goes from a highly treatable 95% down to a terrifying 50%.
So she was forced to gamble. Risk her future health and fertility on one hand, or risk late-stage cancer on the other.
It's an impossible decision. The pain eventually subsided, but that core anger, that profound frustration over the lack of precise medical tools, it took root. She was forced to guess when she should have had a clear, definitive answer.
And that personal failure of the medical system, that became the driving mission for her entire professional life.
That initial experience, it just galvanized her. She realized it quickly, that her situation wasn't some isolated case of bad luck.
Right, it was a symptom of something much larger, a systemic inadequacy within women's health diagnostics. She started reading everything she could find, fueled by that same scientific curiosity that, had led her to collect bugs as a child and take detailed field notes.
And she began her analysis by zeroing in on the existing standard of care. She started with the very tool they used to diagnose her, the ultrasound.
And what she discovered was a really fundamental technical limitation.
Yeah, the ultrasound, she found, it only gave a black and white two-dimensional image. A skilled doctor could use it to see the physical characteristics of the mass. Is it fluid-filled, is it solid, or is it mixed?
But it couldn't deliver the most critical piece of information.
Exactly. It could not tell you whether that mass was benign or malignant. It confirmed a problem existed, but it offered no diagnostic conclusion. It was a picture, but it wasn't an answer.
And the other half of that diagnostic pairing, the blood test for cancer antigen 125 or CA125, that was arguably even more frustrating.
Oh, absolutely. So this test is designed to search for elevated levels of the CA125 protein in the blood, which is a protein that's often produced in large amounts by cancerous ovarian or fallopian tube cells.
Okay, but here's where it gets really important for you, the listener, to understand the flaw in this whole protocol. Sarna discovered that these protein levels in a woman's body, they fluctuate a lot.
A lot. And they're elevated by dozens of common, completely benign conditions.
So elevated CA125 isn't just a cancer signal.
Not at all. Conditions as simple as menstruation, fibroids, endometriosis, even pelvic inflammatory disease can cause those numbers to spike.
Which would trigger false alarms and, unnecessary anxiety.
And just as bad, some early-stage ovarian cancers don't elevate CA125 at all, causing these incredibly dangerous false negatives.
So what's the outcome? What Sarna discovered was that the CA125 test is only accurate about 50% of the time when it's used as a definitive tool for these complex cysts.
50%, that is a terrifyingly unreliable metric. It's a coin toss.
It makes the entire diagnosis a coin toss based on highly imprecise tools. And it forces doctors and patients right back into that same agonizing high-risk guessing game that she had faced at 13.
And this diagnostic crisis, it leads directly to the broader systemic failure that Sarna really dedicated her career to addressing. And that is the sheer volume of unnecessary, life-altering procedures being performed every year.
When you look at the statistics, the scope of this inequity becomes just horrifyingly clear.
It's truly staggering data. Our source material notes that each year in the U.S. alone, 300,000 women undergo surgery to have their ovaries removed.
300,000. That's a massive volume of major life-altering procedures.
It is. Yet the CDC data confirms that only about 21,000 women are ultimately diagnosed with ovarian cancer each year.
Wow. That disparity is, that's a profound failure of precision medicine.
It is. Hundreds of thousands of women losing an ovary, dealing with premature menopause, hormonal changes, loss of fertility, only for a fraction of them to actually have a cancer diagnosis. These are surgeries that could often be avoided if a doctor could just say, with certainty, this mass is benign.
And the flip side is just as dire for the women who do have cancer. Because the tools force this guessing game, only 20% of ovarian cancer cases are caught at an early localized stage.
Right. And if that cancer is allowed to spread, to metastasize, the 5-year survival rate drops by nearly half, from 95% down to about 50%. The current system forces these impossible choices while failing to save lives effectively because of delay.
And Sarna understood this wasn't just an ovarian cancer issue. She saw it as a systemic pattern of neglect across all of women's health.
She did. She noted other stark examples like endometriosis. It's a condition that causes debilitating pain, impacts 4 million women in the U.S.
And because there's a lack of non-invasive clear diagnostics, it takes, 4 to 11 years for many women to finally get a diagnosis?
4 to 11 years of pain and uncertainty. And then there's the procedure for checking fallopian tube blockage, which is often a precursor to infertility issues. It's called hysterosalpingography, or HSG.
We mentioned it in the outline, but we really need to dig into why Sarna was so focused on replacing this.
Okay, so the HSG procedure is brutal, and it's logistically a nightmare. First, it involves injecting dye and using X-rays to see the blockage. It is notoriously painful for the patient.
And critically, because it needs X-ray equipment and trained technicians, it can't be done quickly or conveniently in a gynecologist's office.
Right. It requires a referral, a hospital visit, specialized imaging equipment. So the core logistical problem Sarna identified was that doctors couldn't offer convenient in-office diagnostics.
What's truly shocking here is the historical stasis. The source material notes that the HSG procedure has not been replaced or even significantly innovated upon in over 100 years.
Think about that for a second. We have medical devices for heart surgery that are miniaturized and guided by robots. Yet the basic tool for checking something as fundamental as fallopian tube patency, it's a procedure that basically dates back to the early 1900s.
It's that deep, pervasive sense of a chasm of inequity, where half the population's core health needs are just addressed with antiquated technology.
Yeah, that became the fuel. It's this realization that women were treated like second-class citizens in medical research. I mean, female patients were excluded from clinical trials for life-saving drugs until the 1970s.
Based on the ridiculous idea that they were too dainty or too hormonally complicated.
Exactly. So Sarna wasn't just addressing a niche market. She was trying to correct a historical imbalance rooted in scientific bias.
So Sarna identifies this massive systemic problem.
Hmm.
But the leap from good indignation to actually executing on a solution requires, strategic, deliberate preparation.
She didn't just jump straight into fundraising for a medical device. She recognized she needed specific experience first, particularly technical mastery.
After she earned her molecular biology degree at UC Berkeley, a degree she almost missed out on because of uneven grades from her illness, she faced this pivotal career choice.
Right. She could have taken the high-paying, secure path offered by investment banks, or she could accept a quality engineer job at Abbott Vascular for roughly half the salary.
And she chose Abbott, the lower-paying technical path, working directly on these complex catheters designed to inject stem cells into the heart.
This choice was profoundly strategic. Her core insight, which is invaluable for any aspiring entrepreneur, was this. For a product-based company, and a medical device company is a product company, technical mastery is absolutely required to execute the business vision.
Right. Business skills, she reasoned, those could be acquired later or learned on the job.
And she backs this up with the history of Silicon Valley, right? The first wave of successful companies, Varian, HP, Ampex, they were founded by engineers and scientists.
Even today, successful startups like DoorDash and Airbnb had engineers or technically proficient co-founders at their core.
Exactly. If you're creating a complex, patented device that has to interface with the human body, you must fundamentally understand product creation, material science, and engineering first.
Her time at Abbott was basically her technical apprenticeship.
She learned about the incredible versatility of catheters, this concept that you could access almost anywhere in the body if you just mastered the right materials, the right sizes, the steering mechanisms. This was all directly applicable to her long-term goal.
The goal of navigating the delicate, complex path of the fallopian tubes, which are, maybe one of the most difficult anatomical areas to access.
But the conventional corporate structure eventually pushed back. Abbott offered her a promotion to oversee the quality of product packaging.
A move Sarna knew would pigeonhole her. It would take her further away from the R&D and design experience she craved.
So she turned it down, maintained her focus, and then came the pivotal moment. She was laid off.
A layoff can be just devastating financially and emotionally, but Sarna immediately viewed it as this high-stakes opportunity to redirect her path.
She rejected the default secure option of just finding another high-paying corporate job.
Instead, she cold contacted a tiny 15-person cardiovascular startup and proposed a part-time R&D consulting role.
This was the pivotal risk. She was gambling on herself, accepting the insecurity just to gain that specific product design experience that she lacked, especially without a formal mechanical engineering degree.
It was a conscious decision to choose learning over comfort.
Yeah, her good indignation about women's health just completely outweighed any self-doubt or anxiety about being laid off. She was building her own alternative curriculum.
And this bold move paid off spectacularly, largely thanks to the mentorship she found.
Right. The R&D head, a guy named Dave Snow, he saw her potential and took a huge risk, trusting her motivation. He didn't just give her tasks. He provided personalized teaching, giving her mechanical engineering reading materials, detailed instruction on design concepts.
And within just 2 months, her consulting role transitioned into a full-time product development engineer position, working directly under him.
This relationship provided that core, hands-on technical foundation she needed to build Envision. She wasn't just learning theory anymore. She was iterating on actual prototypes.
But the truly invaluable lesson, the strategic blueprint that accelerated her timeline, they came from a seemingly unrelated executive, Roy Chin, the CEO of SpineView.
Right. Sarna met him and stated her 10-year goal of founding a medical device company.
And Chin just challenged her directly. Asked her, why 10 years?
He told her she could absolutely do it before she turned 30. He essentially demystified the entire process for her, removing that perceived need for a decade of waiting and collecting credentials.
So what was the structural clarity he gave her that let her accelerate that timeline so dramatically?
Chin explained that a medical device company, when you strip it down to its core, is simply a collection of essential functions.
Like what?
Research and development, preclinical testing, clinical trials, manufacturing, reimbursement strategy, marketing, and sales. It's not some magic box. It's a sequence of operational departments.
That realization must have been massive. It empowered her to stop waiting and instead focus on just gaining a high-level functional understanding of each of those components.
Exactly. She didn't need to be an expert in all 7 areas, but she needed to understand how they all integrated and who to hire for each role. It gave her a concrete project plan, not just a vague dream.
And that clarity immediately informed her next professional decision.
Mm.
She turned down a higher salary management position in the quality department because she realized that while it offered status and money, it would pull her out of R&D.
She chose to stay in the weeds, focusing on technical depth, even if it meant foregoing immediate comfort and financial reward. She was strategically building her own ladder piece by piece, tailored specifically to her dream.
You can have the best blueprint and the best technical foundation, but a startup that doesn't validate its core pain point with the people who actually practice medicine is, it's built on sand.
Absolutely. And Sarna's networking strategy wasn't passive. It was aggressive, it was targeted, and it was unforgettable, starting with that legendary pitch to her gynecologist.
Yes, the source material recounts that Sarna, who was 23 at the time, was having a routine appointment with her longtime OBGYN, Dr. Carol Cook.
And while lying in the stirrups, she just blurts out her microcatheter concept. She's trying to secure a definitive diagnosis for ovarian masses.
You have to admire the sheer conviction there.
Dr. Cook, completely startled by this impromptu pitch, later agreed to meet with Sarna outside the exam room. That personal commitment, rooted in Sarna's own health scare, it made an instant, profound impression.
And Dr. Cook became Sarna's first critical validator. She confirmed the devastating flaws of the existing HSG procedure.
Right. Dr. Cook didn't just say it was painful and inaccurate. She emphasized the logistical nightmare it created for the gynecologist, requiring referrals, preventing doctors from offering comprehensive care in their own office.
Dr. Cook's strategic advice was key. Sarna needed to talk to the doctors who still relied on the old method. This led to dozens of conversations, and this is where Sarna showed her genius for collecting data.
She didn't just seek affirmation, she strategically used conflicting and negative advice.
This is such a crucial lesson for any innovator.
It is. She treated negative feedback not as rejection, but as a roadmap. Doctors who disliked the concept raised serious, specific concerns. They worried a new device would be too expensive. Or, more critically, they flatly didn't believe it was technically possible to navigate the fallopian tube without perforating it.
They cited previous commercial failures.
Exactly. And that negative feedback was directional gold. It forced Sarna to immediately pivot from talking to doctors to researching failed patents and clinical studies from previous attempts.
She realized the solution wasn't just about making a catheter, it was about overcoming historically insurmountable technical barriers.
Right. This deep dive revealed complex, known technical challenges. She learned about the whiteout problem, where fluid used to distend the tube would just obscure the view, making imaging inside the tiny tube useless.
And she learned the staggering dimensional limitation. The fallopian tube is incredibly narrow, only about 1 millimeter wide in places.
1 millimeter, meaning her device had to be minuscule, yet strong enough to be steered.
She was essentially stress testing her idea against a decade of failed ventures. This commitment to homework, to honoring the expertise of those who had failed before, it led her to cultivate this deliberate, multifaceted keystone network of female advisors.
Let's look at the 3 critical keystones. First, Dr. Lynn Westphal, a respected physician and academic.
Okay, what did she provide?
Dr. Westphal provided a key technical pathway. She suggested Sarna use the existing working channel of a hysteroscope, a device already used to see the uterus. This simplified the access problem.
So the gynecologist wouldn't need a completely new tool.
Precisely. And Dr. Westphal didn't stop at advice. She invited Sarna into her outpatient OR to watch actual procedures in vivo.
That's invaluable. A
Yeah.
real-time look at how a device would be used.
And it drove Sarna's key insight into usability. The device had to be incredibly simple and ergonomic because doctors are simultaneously looking in 3 places: their hands, the patient, and the external screen. If it was complicated, they just wouldn't use it.
Okay, so who is the second keystone?
Anula Jayasurya, the quadruple threat.
Hmm.
An MD, a PhD, and an MBA.
Wow.
Anula became the rigorous editorial filter. She refined Sarna's pitch deck for months until it was bulletproof, meeting the uncompromising standards of venture capital.
Anil's commitment wasn't just academic, though. It was existential for Envision.
Completely. She was the source of every single introduction for the company's crucial first funding round. That level of investment, not just in time but in social capital, it just proves the conviction she had in Sarna.
And the third keystone.
Karen Drexler, the seasoned operator. Karen had experience running and selling successful medical device companies. She provided that crucial corporate and leadership perspective, balancing the clinical passion of the doctors and the financial perspective of the investors.
She could speak both languages, building a team and achieving an exit.
And Sarna's networking tactics were just so systematic and profoundly respectful. Before every meeting, she did thorough research, showing respect for the advisor's time.
And after, she'd follow up not just with a thank you, but with specific answers to questions they had raised, even if it took her an hour to research and write the perfect reply.
And it wasn't just planned networking either. She leveraged serendipity. There's a story of her striking up a conversation with an entrepreneur next to her on a plane, and that person agreed to review her deck mid-flight, giving her crucial feedback right before a major pitch.
She was just relentless in seeking input. She recognized that her network was her greatest competitive advantage.
Despite having a credible idea, a clear blueprint in this roster of high-caliber advisors, the fundraising journey for Envision was, by all accounts, brutal.
Yeah, the data and the story were compelling, but the market they were targeting, women's health, faced this deep-seated bias.
It was a gauntlet. Sarna recounts being rejected by at least 50 investors, and the bias was multifaceted. First, male VCs often dismissed women's health as a niche market.
Or, in Sarna's chilling description, bikini medicine, a term that just diminishes the critical nature of these diagnostics.
And second, she faced personal bias against her credentials. She was a first-time 32-year-old female CEO, lacking the conventional pedigree, not a physician, not a formally trained engineer, not a serial entrepreneur.
The industry prefers known quantities, usually older men with previous successes.
And the anecdotes here are just so telling of the disrespect she faced. She vividly recalls a pitch where a prominent Palo Alto VC intentionally crinkled a candy wrapper through her entire presentation.
A calculated move just to disrupt her focus and unnerve her.
It was a psychological test designed to make her fail.
That level of intentional disrespect, combined with the bias, would lead most people to just quit. But Sarna had a conscious counter-strategy.
She used her good indignation as armor. She didn't focus on the doubters' opinions. She focused on the clinical need, reminding herself of the massive systemic failure she was trying to correct.
She drew strength from every time she had overcome disadvantage in her early life.
The tide finally began to turn with Darshana Zaveri of Catalyst Health. After 18 months of frustrating back and forth, Sarna finally got the call from Darshana. But the news was bad.
Right. Darshana's team loved the concept, but the internal investment committee couldn't approve the seed investment because of the perceived risk. A first-time founder with no prototype.
And here is the breakthrough commitment that really defined Sarna's leadership. Instead of accepting the rejection, she immediately called Darshana back and made an unprecedented offer.
She proposed to forgo a salary for 2 full years.
Let's analyze that move, because it's more than just saving $200,000.
It's a powerful, non-verbal signal.
It eliminated the financial risk the investors feared she posed. It proved beyond any doubt that she was all in. She was relying solely on the success of the company for her livelihood.
She told Darshana she would rely on her husband's income or even move back home if she had to.
That tenacity, that conviction, it completely transcended the risk metrics in the pitch deck.
And that sheer conviction compelled Darshana Zaveri. She felt obligated to fight her firm, even proposing to invest personally if the firm wouldn't.
Right, and this led to securing the initial $100,000 investment and the formation of the all-female seed stage board. It was a win forged not just from a great idea, but from an unparalleled, financially painful commitment.
While all this fraught fundraising was underway, Sarna had a critical realization that caused a major technical pivot. It shifted Envision's entire focus and massively increased its market.
Yeah. At a conference, a Dr. Vivian Connor dropped a key scientific insight based on recent research.
And what was that discovery?
Dr. Connor shared the increasingly accepted theory that most ovarian cancer originates not in the ovary itself, but in the fallopian tube.
So ovarian cancer is often a misnomer. Scientifically, it should be called fallopian tube cancer.
Exactly, and this changed everything. Their initial goal was just visualization replacing the painful HSG procedure. That was a logistical improvement.
But now, Sarna had a much larger, more critical target: early cancer detection. It made their company life-saving, not just convenience-focused.
This realization instantly changed their value proposition. Sana's idea shifted from imaging to cytology, developing a cell collection device, essentially a pap smear for the fallopian tube.
And the key was adapting the technical solution they were already exploring.
The linear averting balloon catheter they were developing with the inventor, Dr. Albert Chin. She realized they could slightly texture the surface of this balloon to gently scrape and collect epithelial cells from the wall of the tube as it navigated.
And this textured balloon concept became Envision's ultimate focus. It pivoted the company from solving an infertility problem to solving a cancer screening problem.
So this technical pivot to cytology meant starting the R&D process almost from scratch, but now with these extremely limited, hard-won seed funds.
This necessitated profound resourcefulness.
Totally. With only $250,000 raised initially, every single dollar had to stretch. Sarna needed biological models, animal reproductive systems similar to humans, for initial testing.
And she first inquired with a medical-grade tissue supplier,
Who quoted a staggering $1,000 for a single sheep fallopian tube.
a cost that would have instantly destroyed their budget.
So demonstrating classic startup ingenuity, Sana started calling local livestock farms and slaughterhouses. She found one that sold her the full sheep reproductive systems for just $5 each.
Parts that were already slated for disposal after the animals were slaughtered for meat.
Exactly. She bought 10 of them, loaded them into her car, and drove them back, enduring the pretty unpleasant smell, all to save thousands of dollars in early testing.
That anecdote just perfectly captures the resourcefulness required when capital is scarce.
It does. So they collaborated closely with Dr. Albert Chin, Al, a prolific inventor with over 200 patents. He was the co-inventor of this revolutionary Fogarty-Chin linear averting balloon catheter.
We need to understand this technology.
Sure.
So imagine a tube sock that rolls inside out as you deploy it.
That's a great way to put it. The catheter doesn't push its way through. It gently unfolds, making it soft enough to navigate the delicate, minuscule fallopian tube without damaging tissue, but rigid enough when expanded to provide guidance.
But the initial testing with the sheep parts confirmed that the sheep anatomy was not a good model.
Right, it's wide at the start and narrow at the end, the reverse of the human anatomy. To progress, they needed human tissue, which led them to a Dr. Jose Garza in Monterrey, Mexico.
And Dr. Garza agreed to provide removed human uteri and fallopian tubes for only $5 each. These were organs from patients who had already consented to a hysterectomy.
A critical opportunity for realistic testing. But these initial tests failed, and the source details why.
What was the issue?
Once the organs were removed, blood flow stopped almost instantly, and the tissue atrophied and shrank dramatically. It made the opening of the fallopian tube too small for their device to navigate.
So the linear everting balloon, while gentle, it lacked the initial stiffness to pass through that muscular opening in the atrophied tissue.
Right, but despite the failures, the team persisted. They were convinced the technology was sound. This brought them back to Mexico for the ultimate test, a live human study.
This was conducted just before the patient's scheduled hysterectomy, so the tissue would still be in its natural, blood-perfused, non-atrophied state.
A suggestion from Dr. Garza himself. But even in the live study, the balloon failed to deploy correctly according to protocol. Al and Dave, the experienced engineers, were hesitant to deviate from the plan mid-study.
But Sarna, trusting her gut and her deep knowledge of the device, insisted on an immediate, real-time protocol change.
This was the CEO's hunch that saved the study. Sarna insisted on two key changes: pre-deploying 2 centimeters of the balloon before it entered the tube and slightly increasing the inflation pressure.
And that pre-deployment provided the necessary initial stiffness and directionality to access the opening.
A massive win for navigation. But the next failure quickly presented itself after they successfully collected the cells.
What happened?
They sent the samples to pathology, and the report came back. No cells at all. Sana quickly analyzed the procedure and realized the issue was simple but critical.
The hysteroscope procedure required distending the uterus with saline.
And when the sampling balloon was withdrawn from the tube and pulled back into that saline-filled uterus...
The saline just washed all the collected cells away.
Exactly. So the solution was brilliantly simple: adding a protective sheath to the device. This separate piece of tubing served as a secure compartment. As the balloon was withdrawn, it was immediately pulled into the sheath, securing the cells and shielding them from the saline wash.
This innovation led to the final critical breakthrough, thanks to a pathology consultant, Dr. Sharmila Pramanik.
Right. Initially, the hospital lab in Monterey reported almost 0 cells from the samples, leading to despair.
But Dr. Pramanik, using her own unique preparation method on the samples, provided a completely different report.
Her analysis revealed good cellularity in terms of volume, cell preservation, and cytology. This was it, the definitive validation. The textured balloon could collect viable human epithelial cells from the fallopian tube.
It proved the core function of Envision. So with the concept validated, the next hurdle was regulatory clearance.
Sarna hunted down Cindy Demekis, a regulatory specialist whose name was on countless successful women's health FDA approvals. Demekis was so busy she didn't reply for a week.
But she eventually agreed to advise them, and she advised a crucial strategic regulatory pathway.
The 510K clearance, and this is important for you to understand, a 510K pathway is much faster and less expensive than the big pre-market approval or PMA route.
Because it allows a device to be cleared by citing its similarity to an already cleared predicate device.
The strategy was to link their device to an existing uterine cell collection device, since the first part of the fallopian tube is contiguous with the uterus. They made a critical safety decision to limit their initial device depth to 2.5 centimeters.
Which was the depth another device, Essure, had already been cleared for. It made their application seem lower risk to the FDA.
Right, so they conducted a clinical study on 10 subjects and submitted the data. During a subsequent larger study, they did encounter a major complication.
A perforation incident in the 31st patient.
Yes, and they quickly discovered the tube was badly infected and blocked, which caused the balloon to perforate the fragile wall.
And crucially, they transparently disclosed this complication, including the full explanation of the blocked tube to the FDA.
And despite this significant incident, the sheer strength of the positive data on cell collection, combined with the low-risk pathway, led to their eventual clearance in November 2015.
The clearance was specifically to obtain cells from the proximal fallopian tube for cytological evaluation. This was a massive milestone.
But the team immediately received feedback from physicians indicating a new challenge.
For cancer detection, they would ultimately have to go the full 10-centimeter length of the fallopian tube because the cancer originates at the far end.
This is the reality of medical device innovation. One milestone immediately reveals the next challenge. The team had to go back to the clean room for more design iteration.
As the company grew, Sarna realized that culture was just as vital as clinical data. She realized the best part of her experience was the deep personal commitment of her employees. She eventually dubbed their team La Familia.
This culture was really exemplified by the story of Jesus Magana.
His backstory is incredible, and it says so much about Sarna's unconventional hiring philosophy.
Yeah, he had crossed the border illegally as an 11-year-old child. He spent his youth picking up jobs, cleaning local bars, sleeping on hard floors, and despite never attending high school, he possessed this almost unnatural talent for manufacturing and workflow optimization.
His talent led him to a technician role at another medical device company where he excelled. When Sarna met him and hired him as an R&D technician, he quickly became the heart and soul of Envision.
He wasn't just assembling parts, he was actively spotting subtle flaws in the design and suggesting crucial technical refinements.
During conversation, Sarna heard Jesus remark that he would never be able to afford a prestigious watch like the Rolex Dr. Garza wore, or, more importantly, send his 3 children to college.
And Sarna, seeing his talent and commitment, made a firm promise to him.
She promoted Jesus to engineer, securing additional equity for him that recognized his contributions beyond just his hourly wage. And the source confirms she delivered on her promise.
He now owns the Rolex she gifted him after the sale, and his eldest son has successfully finished his first year of college.
It just shows the importance of valuing unconventional talent and aligning employee growth directly with company success.
And this kind of culture, it attracted other A-grade talent. A quality expert named Wendy Heigl was so drawn by the mission that she delivered a full, meticulous design review in just 4 days, working through a weekend to meet a critical clinical deadline.
In Dave Snow, Sarna's original mentor, he eventually returned full-time, drawn back by the clear vision and Sarna's tenacious drive.
Her hiring strategy was deliberate. She didn't just rely on conventional resumes. She focused on core cultural values, mutual respect, tenacity, and a profound commitment to patient impact.
Her first 4 hires spanned different ages, races, and educational backgrounds.
Yeah.
It shows the real value she placed on diversity of thought and experience.
However, even with an A-team and a strong culture, the unrelenting pressure of running a medical device startup combined with a major life event, it led to an intense personal crisis for Sarna, a deep burnout crisis.
Sarna became pregnant during the crucial fundraising for the Series B round, and she eventually gave birth prematurely to her son, Shreyas, at 34 weeks.
She was immediately put on hospital bed rest for 2 weeks. But instead of resting, she refused to cancel a board meeting. She argued against the advice of her board members. She felt she had to prove her commitment to her new investors.
She describes the guilt of feeling personally responsible for his early birth and the extreme anxiety of constantly checking on her tiny baby in the NICU.
And even after Freya's came home, she was severely sleep-deprived, struggling intensely with mother's guilt. This is the invisible, punishing cost of the hustle culture that's so often glorified in startups.
The situation became untenable. Just 4 weeks after her C-section, she was forced to return to the office because internal team friction had boiled over.
She realized she had failed to finalize crucial decision-making protocols before her water broke, leaving the company leaderless and in turmoil. She had to return immediately to restore stability, sacrificing her recovery time.
This intense experience led Sarna to a profound realization about the necessity of establishing clear boundaries. She had to prevent the never-ending nature of startup work from destroying her well-being.
She learned to set a hard line for family time, scheduling it deliberately and defending that time fiercely, rather than just hoping work would end on its own.
She also had to confront her own paralyzing perfectionism. She realized she wouldn't hire a nanny because she feared they couldn't care for her premature baby perfectly.
And she resisted using contract research organizations, or CROs, for clinical work because she feared they wouldn't perform as good a job as her internal team.
Sarna concluded that perfectionism, while we often see it as a strength, is the hidden enemy of mental health and progress when you are constantly stressed and operating in a state of cognitive fatigue.
The solution was lowering her standards, recognizing that 80% effort by a trusted professional is infinitely better than 100% effort that leads to the CEO's collapse.
Despite the exhaustion and the personal sacrifices, the team secured groundbreaking clinical results. They successfully collected malignant cells without any false positives.
This proof point that their device could deliver on the promise of early cancer detection, it attracted rapid investigation from 5 large medical device companies, including Boston Scientific.
And Boston Scientific demonstrated the most serious interest. They signaled their commitment by sending entire functional teams, engineers, regulatory experts, marketing leads for deep due diligence at Envision's tiny, cramped 10 by 12-foot office.
This is a moment of intense scrutiny where the purchasing company tries to find every single flaw.
And Sarna managed this entire high-stakes process while actively pumping breast milk. She normalized the experience for the visiting male executives.
Instead of hiding the realities of motherhood and startup life, she brought them right into the room. It created an environment where one male executive even encouraged her, saying, "Oh yeah, go do that. My wife feels so much better afterward."
The dedication of Boston Scientific, combined with Sarna's ultimate hope that a larger company's vast resources would get the product to patients quicker than Envision could alone, led to the deal closure.
Envision Medical was sold for $275 million, validating the incredible effort of La Familia and securing the financial future of the entire team, including Jesus Magana's children's college tuition.
The legacy of Surbi Sarna isn't solely defined by that $275 million exit. It's the blueprint she created for leveraging what makes you feel different or underrated.
Yeah, her entire journey from feeling like an outsider who preferred collecting bugs to being a successful founder and now a partner at Y Combinator, it shows that the rate of doubt when you harness it correctly is true rocket fuel.
She learned that the most damaging effect of self-doubt isn't failure, it's inertia. It's the thing that prevents you from taking the first step and actually building your own ladder.
And she now advises countless founders, and she argues that the key isn't to eliminate doubt entirely, because entrepreneurs who lack self-awareness about risk are dangerous, but to manage it.
Self-doubt, she says, keeps you humble, honest, and acutely alert to potential risks.
And the final wisdom she shares focuses really deeply on the price of that extraordinary success, a lesson that should resonate with you, the listener, as you pursue your own ambitious goals.
Sarna achieved this monumental victory while running on emotional exhaustion, taking high-stakes meetings from a hospital bed and pushing her body to the absolute limit right after childbirth.
She realized that true fulfillment wasn't found in the transaction or the financial exit itself. It was in having been fully present in the moment, a presence that was often stolen by the relentless pressure of the startup.
The acquisition provided the financial reward and the external validation, but she still mourns the moments of presence that she missed.
This raises a powerful and provocative thought for you to consider.